Hello, this is Fundamental Programming Course CO1027. Today we are going to talk about a lot of topics that including array, pointer, and structure. Those are essential to programming language. So in the first session, I want to discuss with you on the array and structure. Basically, that are some extension of the basic data type that you have been using so far. Okay, and so let's jump into it. The first thing we want to talk about is a structured data type. Okay, and as you can see, when you design the programs, this is hard for you if you can only use some basic data type like boolean, float, or integer, and so on. It's unlikely that you are going to design a software that have 1,000 of variables, and you will very soon get out of control. So this is bad idea, right? So for every language, they will provide you let's say some extension of their basic data structure that including what we are going to talk here. Okay, so for most of language, they will support you to create some structured data type like this one. Okay, here we go. You need two essential data type. One is a sequence of memory slot. Well, this one is sometimes is called a list. Okay, and I think it comes very natural because very often we are going to need a list of something like a list of integer, a list of array, a list of books, a list of student, and so on, right? So this one I think is supported by a lot of language. Okay, and the second structured data type that we are going to talk here is a mixture of different kind of data type. Think about a situation when you have to describe let's say a books or maybe a student, right? Then you may know that a student has a lot of information, right? They may have their student ID, they may have the name, and also their address and their score, and so on and so forth. And for that, you see that composition is very diverse. Some, like the name is an array of characters, or let's say the ID is an integer, or the birthday is a data type, right? So we have very let's say very diverse. Okay, you can use a lot of data type inside a structure like this. Okay, so we are going to talk about this in just a minute. The first thing we are going to discuss here is array. Okay, well, array is essentially a list of the same data type. So as I say, as a list, you will have is organized in the memory like a sequence of elements like this one. Okay, and they are stick together in a sequence. That is why we call it array. All right, and well, unlike some other language, if you are familiar with Pascal, for example, then the index of the first element is 1. Well, it is unlikely that you are going to use 1 for index in C++ because in this language, the first element will have index 0. Okay, and depends on your perceptions, your style of programming may change a lot. Okay, I believe that you are going through some example in on the class. Then we can talk more on the class, okay? But trust me, it's easy. Just think about an array of 12 elements, start from index 0 up to 11th. That's easy, right? And that's how array works. You can think about it as a sequence of memory slot, okay? And for declaring array, you need to declare it as a normal variable, except that you need to specify the sign of that array, okay? Here is the array sign. For example, you see here we have C as an array of integer, and that array has 5 elements, okay? Now, one thing I want to note is that well, array sign is a constant, okay? Some of you may say, okay, let's say I have integer n, and let me ask user to read type in their sign of their array, then I may declare integer C with n. Is that valid? Well, that question is easy to answer because as you know, our code will be compiled before running, right? And in the compiling step, obviously the compiler will try to allocate the sign for this array, okay? And because this one is a static array, let's say static array. Because it's a static array, it means everything needs to be allocated at the compiling time, right? Therefore, the number here must be specified at the compiling time. However, because you describe it as a normal integer, there's no way the compiler can infer or maybe find out what is the value you want to declare right here, okay? So this is a very bad statement. In fact, you will get the compiling error here. So my note here for you is remember the sign must be a constant, okay? It can be a constant integer that you describe in your programs, or it can also be a literal number here, okay? It is up to you. Now for initializing array, you have several ways, right? You have learned about loops. So in fact, you can try to write a very short loop, run through your array, and then try to assign the value for each element, right? As you can see, you can set value for your array one by one by do the assignment statement here. Easy, right? It's like I'm setting 10 to the 5th element of C, because the index is 4, it's the 5th element, okay? So this simple loop will do that initialization step by initializing 5 elements of C to 0. That's easy, right? You can also use an initializer list. This initialization method I introduced to you before, but now it comes to effect because you now see it more and more often. It's unlikely that you are going to declare integer x and you initialize this one. I don't normally initialize this way, even though I can, but it's very abnormal. However, if you want to initialize an array, then this one becomes a norm, okay? So I can also do this integer b, okay, let's say 10, but I just want to initialize the first one and the second one as 0 and 1. The rest I don't care. That's also valid, okay? So think about initializing as a way for you to put up some starting value for your array, and it starts from index 0. Okay, always from the left. You can access the value of an array this way. Easy, right? Using the variable of your array, and then support an index inside that bracket, and you get the items. So here you can write down something to your array, then you can also read something from your array. You can also read and access at the same time. So it's a little bit more complicated, but I will try to explain more to you on the class, but I hope you keep the note, and we can have more discussion. Okay, well, this is another example that I want you to take a look. Another one which I use the initialization, uniform initialization for your array, and that's also another good practice of using this method. Okay, next we are going to talk about structure, right? Because after investigating about array, obviously you want to know what a structure looks like. We now try to compose or define a new data structure that having a lot of information inside, something that related together. Okay, think about the structure this way, like I need to describe a record of a book, for example. Then that record need a title, author, subject, and book IDs. All of these elements are different, depends on their meaning. Okay, so you can see this is just nothing but a customized data type, or let's say, let me call it correctly, it should be called user defined data type. Alright, and so for defining the data structure, the structure here is easy. You start by using the keyword struct, and followed by the struct name here, and in this bracket you get the declaration of your data. Okay, each one represent a field inside your struct, and then this is optional. You can declare some variable at the same time too, but for most of case I'm not going to do that. It's gonna be painful to do so. So I'm gonna separate the declaration of the struct with variable declaration. Okay, now here is very simple example of the book structure. Okay, I declare books as a struct with 4 members. One is the title, is an array of 50 characters. Author is same, an array of 50 characters. Subject is 100 characters. Okay, and book IDs is an integer. Okay, now for declaring the books, you can declaring struct books and then support by the variable. Okay, it's simple. This is the data type that you support. Now this writing is very old school. I mean, very long time ago you may write this way, especially if you are programming in C. You are going to use that style. However, in modern programming language, including C++, you don't write it that way. You just write books and book 1. So books is actually a data type already. Okay, so I think you will feel more comfortable when you're trying to use struct in a long run. Now this is like the history of programming. Long time ago, when people try to write C code, then they feel like putting the struct in front of every struct name is uncomfortable, so they use type define as one way to to make an alias for the structure. Okay, so this statement say I'm trying to define a struct with the following content and use books as an alias for this struct. Okay, so it's kind of fun. Here you don't support any name for your struct. In fact, you take the whole struct and then you give it an alias called books, and so here you declare book1 as the data type books, and this is the struct associated with book1. Okay, so I think that's clear now. Type define is just one way to give your data type an alias, and it's give you more flexibility when you do programming. Okay, I think in the next few slides, when you come into pointer section, then you feel this one is a little bit better in some sense. Okay, now for accessing the struct member, you can use the member access operator here, the dot. Okay, this dot is maybe easy to all of you to understand. Let's say I want to take the title in that book1. Okay, I want to take the book ID in book1. Okay, so you can either read the value here or you can write the value here. It's up to you, right? It's let you have a way to access some member inside a struct. Okay, pretty easy.